flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tattooed on his left arm, Old Glory flying proud on that eastbound western star. He's got an MIA sticker for his brothers that still miss him, praying that somehow they make it home. He drives across this country from sea to shining sea, remembering the sacrifice, how freedom don't come free. With a windshield full of what he loves, takes pride in what he did and does. This soldier grabs another gear, he rolls on. Star stripes and white lines, charging through the long night, like an 18-wheel cavalry, loaded down with liberty. Where would America be without stars, stripes, and white lines? He thinks about his babies, safe and sound asleep at home, and he knows someday they'll understand the reasons he's been gone. Talk about a hero, man, I'd sure like to shake his hand, take the time to thank the man that keeps his country strong. Stars, stripes, and white lines, charging through the long night, like an 18-wheel cavalry, loaded down with liberty. Where would America be without stars, stripes, and white lines?
What's going on, people? My goodness. It is a Monday night. How's everybody doing tonight? Let's see who we got in here. TJ. Yeah, TJ, I'm okay. Yep. Jonathan Wheeler, what's up? It's me, Gary. CPAP's in the house. Michael P with the old Tony Justice. Yes, you know we listening to Tony Justice, and everybody go and check him out, support him. Old Jeff's in the house. Yep, James whooped me today. Yep, everybody was worried about old James and all them stops he had down in Cincinnati, and boy, he was gonna be hating on me. James is gonna come and find me and whoop my tail for talking him into hauling that load. Lord have mercy. But you know what? I had 8 stops in little towns spread out, 20, 30, 40 miles apart. Some of them 20 miles, some of them 40. James had 9, all in Cincinnati. And he was unloaded probably about 2 hours or so before I was. He had all 9 of his drops off about 2 hours before me. Now granted, he had about a 2-hour head start because I was on a 34, and my 34 did not finish until about 9:20. So I didn't get to my first store until about 9:30. He had about a 2-hour head start on me. I left store number 1. He was already done with store number 3. So it took about the same amount of time, but he had the 2-hour head start. So we both ended up getting all the drops off in one day. James did 9 in one day. I did 8. And I did load a day earlier. But you know what? The multi-stoppers worked out. I don't shy away from them. If it's not anything crazy, you know, some kind of stupid something or another that's gonna mess the trailer up. That's the other thing. I was all, you know, just planning on having a mess in the trailer because they didn't seal the load, you know, with all the stops. There was no seal. And I popped the door open on it the first day to check my straps at the tail and make sure everything was good. And there was water everywhere. It was like a greenhouse in the trailer. The ceiling was wet with water, the walls, and so I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a muddy mess. But you know, honestly, by the time I got done with all my drops today, the floor was dry. There was a ton of rose petals everywhere, but they swept out fine. The floor's dry. Talked to James. He has a hurricane of a blower that he has bought. And he said he blew his stuff right on out. No problem. Floor's dry on his too. So, all in all, not a bad deal. And easy peasy. The Walmarts, they were all Walmarts for both of us. And, you know, my break didn't end this morning until about 9:30. So I got on the phone about 9 o'clock. And I called all the stores. And told them that I was coming, what I had, how many racks, whatever, and I gave them an estimate of when I would be there. And of course, you know, when you're calling store number 8 and you're giving them an estimate, it's going to be a little off. And I told them, you know, hey, you're store number 8, this is what I'm thinking, but it could be earlier, it could be later. And that way, I figured that was a good idea because at least they all had heads up. Hey, this truck is on the way, because what that also did is it allowed me to call and ask them, hey, do you want this at the garden center, tailgate it, and you pick it up with a forklift, or do you want it in the dock? And they all said, nope, bring it to the garden center. We'll have the forklift just grab them off the tail. But what that did is it allowed me to pull straight in and know right where I was going, not having to be figuring it out as I was there, wasting more time. So every single drop I pulled right into the garden center, right on the side. There's a gate there. And went in, told them I was there, went back, grabbed the carts, got them ready to roll. And most of them I was in and out in about 30 or 45 minutes. You know, then I just had to drive down the road 20, 30, 40 miles, depending, to the next stop. Pretty easy peasy. And when you look at the money that they paid out on those loads for the amount of miles it was and the amount of time that was invested, sign me up again. Let's see. There's a place west of Cleveland that delivers to Washington. Potting plants, pays $4,200 like 2 years ago, 6 stops. Yeah, but Cleveland to Washington on a single stopper for $4,200, that's only what, like $2 a mile? Not even, maybe? And then you got 6 stops. I don't know about that one. I don't know about that one. I'm not the person who gives out numbers. Not because I have anything to hide, but I think that everybody's personal business is their own personal business. And if somebody wants to give out numbers, that's fine. But on this situation, I'm going to give out a few numbers. My total mileage came out to just over 950. Now, that was with my deadhead on the front end and all of my drops. Traveling, these loads came out of Oklahoma. And traveling up here to Ohio, and then all the drops. Just 950. I'm almost certain of that. I'd have to double check, but it was right there at it. And that comes out to almost $350 a mile for the amount of money I made on the load. I will do that again. Yeah, TJ. Well, aren't you out on the West Coast? Anyhow, so yeah, that works in your favor there. But yeah, so I mean, $350 a mile on a 900-mile run. That is way above the average going price on a 900-mile run. Okay, you're in Utah. Okay. Well, yeah, when you were in Oregon, that made sense, you know. yeah, I'll take a lower rate per mile sometimes if I need to be home. You know, I'll sacrifice a little bit on that rate per mile. Not crazy. I'm not going stupid. But, you know, if it's a decent rate, it's not my home run rate. But if it's decent, then I'll take that load to go home because it fits a need for me, you know. Other than that, you know, if I'm out on the road, I stay out 2 weeks and, you know, I'll burn down the phone before I take a bad rate. But, yeah, to go home, you make an exception as long as it's not silly. And I do that all the time. But yeah, the multi-stop, it worked out fine. Hauling cars, you can get that all the time. Well, yeah. Well, hauling cars is specialized though. And see, that's one thing, and that's one thing that I'm learning and kind of already knew from my years in the past when I was at Landstar. When you're in the dry van game, dry van is dry van. But if you find something that's odd, something that's some people won't do, you know, for instance, a regular dry van load, one pick, one drop, going to the Bronx is going to pay astronomically more than going to, you know, a suburb out in PA somewhere. Because it's somewhere that most people don't want to go. They've got to pay to get a truck to go there. Same thing with multi-stop loads. Because, you know, if it's a 1 or 2 extra stop thing, a lot of people will do that. When you start getting into the 6, 7, 8, what's going on, Burger? When you start getting into the 6, 7, 8 drops, that's when they have to pay. Because most people are not going to do that. And so that's a way in the dry van world to really bump your rate per mile versus just a 1-in-1. Sean Price is in the house. Now hauling cars, you know, oversized, heavy haul. Yeah, those things pay big bucks per mile because it's specialized. You have a limited amount of people that can do it. When you're in the dry freight game, you got to be doing something odd to get that bump above the norm, you know, because otherwise anybody can haul it. You know, anybody can haul a multi-stop load. It's just not a lot of people are willing to do it. So they have to incentivize you. I mean, it's just like a short hop. You know, they're not going to pay. Well, they would like to pay probably $2 a mile on a 100-mile run, but nobody's going to haul that. So they got to pay the $4 a mile or $5 a mile or whatever you can get them for because they know they got to make it worth your while to fool with it. Same thing with the multi-stop, you know. And I've only been in the spot market, I guess right at 2 months now, and I've done several. Let's see, 1, 2. I don't know. I think 4 or 5 multi-stop loads, and I don't mind them a bit. That's an easy way. If you're out here in this market in the dry freight game, that's an easy way to bump your rate per mile. Yeah, it's a little more work getting the drops off, but you know what? We're out here to work. I mean, that's the name of the game, you know, rate per mile. Less expense, more rate per mile, more profit. And I'll run the multi-stoppers, you know, especially like when things, what's going on, Britt? Especially when you have things happen, you know, and this is not the norm, but, you know, look at my multi-stop I had going to Oklahoma. I mean, it was 900 miles, and I ended up running 600 of it empty because the stores didn't have their stuff together. And so the broker was like, you know, they checked with the customer who was paying for the freight. Head on to the next one. I ended up running 640-something empty miles at over $3 a mile. Tell me who's not going to do that? So I'll do them. No shame in my game on doing multi-stoppers. I don't have a problem with them. Now I'm not going to do something stupid, you know, when they, you know, if it if you talk to brokers, you know, there'll be some stuff that's up there that's just ridiculous, that's not going to happen. And of course, nobody's going to do that. I'm not going to do that anyway. But if it's a plant load or, you know, shopping carts that you're picking up from some stores or, you know, things like that, trees, I did the tree load. I'm fine with that. You know, I did the paper towel load. It was a load of paper towels, went to 2 different Costco's. I've delivered to Costco stores. They're not bad. Sign me up. Because they got to pay a premium to get you to do those multi-stoppers. Sounds good to me. And you know what? Other people don't want to do them. That's more for me. Not saying it's foolish for anybody else not to do them, because it's each their own. That's the point of being in this game as an owner-operator. You get to pick what you want to do. And yes, it's a hassle sometimes. Yeah, it stretches your day out. Right now, my feet are throbbing because I have worked in the back of that trailer today. But at the end of the day, I feel like the profit was worth it. And you know, because, you know, that's really the point of being an owner-operator, right? You get to pick what you want to do, what you don't want to do. It's not for everybody. Me personally, I don't mind. And that's the beauty of this system. You know, you can pick what you want to do, what you don't want to do. And I enjoy it. Rebel Truckers in the house. We're talking about working on multi-stop load, Rebel Trucker. I made, and you know, for some of the people who are still at Schneider, I made some of my best rate per mile at Schneider on multi-stop loads. You know, there is, you know, some of the customers on the Schneider side, when you start looking, you know, if you're looking at that load board and it says it's got multiple stops or whatever, it'll tell you in the little pay section over there what the pay is per stop. Some of them, it's only $50 every stop. But a couple of them that I did, it was an elevating scale where the first extra stop was $50, the second one was $75, the third one, I did 5 stops for Schneider in Houston. And it was $50, $75, $100, and $150 for the 4 extra stops. They were all right down the street from each other. All Kroger grocery stores had paper towels and toilet paper out of Albany, Georgia, where I live, going to Houston. And it paid a phenomenal rate per mile because of all the extra drops. And on top of that, it was paper towels. Johnson says, do you have to unload your own trailer on multi-stop loads? It just depends on what the freight is. You know, I've hauled multi-stop loads where it was multi-stops on the pickup and it's regular freight. You know, they're just, you know, you got to go different couple of places and pick up different items, and they load it in. That's another one, too. I did a John Deere multi-stop. I had 5 tractors, went to 5 tractors, 4 stops. That load paid good because it was 4 different drops. And I didn't have to do anything but open the door and back to the dock, pull the strap down. The guy got in there and drove the tractors off. It was like 18,000 pounds. And it paid some good money to come from Georgia to Ohio with 5 little tractors. So, you know, now like Jonathan, to finish your question there, on this load I had today, it was a flour load. And so, you know, like if you go to Lowe's or Home Depot or wherever you do your home shopping, yep, Tractor Supply loads are like that at Schneider. But if you go to your little home improvement, you know, Lowe's or Walmart or wherever where you buy your flowers and stuff, there'll be those rolling racks. And they got the flowers stacked up, you know. I had a truckload of those come out of Oklahoma, and it went to 8 different Walmarts. And so at each store, because I don't have a lift gate on the back of my trailer, I just got a regular drive-in. At each store I pulled up next to the garden center, there's a gate usually on the side of the garden center that most people don't even pay any attention to. And they brought the forklift out. I rolled the carts to the very tail of the trailer, turned them sideways. They grabbed them with a forklift, set them down, and another worker rolled them inside. I didn't do anything with the cart once it left the trailer. All I was responsible for was rolling it to the back so they could get it with the forklift. The carts were all on wheels. It wasn't a big deal at all. No big deal at all. I had 47 carts on the truck. And in about a total of I guess about 9 hours. I guess it was about 9 hours, but from the time I started to the time I finished my last drop. I got all 8 drops off, 47 carts, and wasn't a big deal. So, you know, if I get down there to Oklahoma again, I'm not saying I'm going to go to Oklahoma just for that, because you never know. Those loads might not be there when you get there. But if I'm in that area again and these loads are available, I'll take another one. Sign me up. So sometimes you have to unload it, you know, but that's part of the pay, you know. That's part of the deal. So yeah, I did several of the Tractor Supply loads, you know, like the ones out of Frankfort, Indiana, and then there's some out of Statesville, North Carolina, hauling that dog food to the different stores. And they're usually fairly short, and so they pay a good rate per mile. I did those plenty. But yeah, I talked to Roscoe this afternoon, and he was happy. You know, he got all his drops off. I was a little bit worried. Jeff had me worried that, you know, he was going to be ready to come up and whoop my tail. You know, like maybe he was deadheading up here to North Baltimore from Cincinnati to give me a beat down. I was worried about it. But he said, no, he was cool. He got all his drops off. And you know, he kind of felt the same way I did about it as far as the money goes and the amount of time invested, the amount of work that was involved. And so, you know, he even in some ways got even more unlucky than I did, because apparently I was there on Friday and loaded, and he was there Saturday, and I guess they ran out of rolling carts from Friday to Saturday at some point. And so all of his were on pallets, like regular wooden pallets with boards and shelves built. You know, it was all some kind of wooden rack system that were no wheels. And so at, I think about 6 or 7 of his drops out of the 9, they brought him a pallet jack. And so he had to pallet jack them to the tail. And so that wasn't quite what he was expecting. But he still ended up beating me because, you know, yeah, his were all in the urban area, but they were pretty much on top of each other. You know, I think he said that, I think maybe one of his furthest ones was like 18 miles. But for the majority, they were all pretty close. And dealing with the garden center people, it's different than dealing with the normal receiving crowd back in the dock, because the garden center people, they don't do a whole lot of receiving all the time. And so it's not that big a deal, you know. So it went really smooth. No problems. And from the way he talked, his went really smooth too. So I'll do them again. And I'll do them another multi-stop in a heartbeat. I don't mind them. It's different. You know, it's a way to up your freight rate while still just hauling dry general goods. So what's everybody talking about here? Oh, Lord, Jonathan Houston, that's going to be a pain in the butt. I hope that they're close and you can just go to the, you know, deliver them in the opposite order and you'll be okay. Rebel Trucker got his little tool from Amazon. Oh, now that sucks, Jonathan. That sucks. Yeah, that would throw a wrench into things if they were to load something like that, you know. But oh well. At that rate, they paid you for all that, I hope. So, you know, just added you some payroll to that. But yeah, so Burger, I'm in North Baltimore, Ohio, at the Big Petro over here. My last drop was just about 8 or 10 miles up the road in Bowling Green, Ohio, and got that one off, did up all my paperwork, and shot down here to the truck stop. I got here, I guess I got here about 8 o'clock or so, 7:30. And no, it's probably a little earlier than that. But yeah, the parking lot was still pretty wide open. Got me a good parking spot. And I say good parking spot. I got a good parking spot where I feel confident I'm not going to get hit. I'm at the very far back of the parking lot. I'm not close, but I'm in a spot where anybody who backs in next to me's got a nice long straight shot, so they shouldn't have no problems. But yeah, I just got about 10 miles to Deadhead in the morning, down to Findlay, and pick up a load that I've hauled a couple of times, and it's going down to Georgia, going home for the holiday. And that's where, you know, that's this load that I'm going to haul tomorrow. You know, honestly, I haven't looked at the DAT board for a load since last Wednesday. No, Tuesday. Because I booked the load going to Oklahoma on Tuesday and then turned right around that same day and booked the load coming up here. And so I was done for the week, and then on Thursday I called the broker that has this load here out of Findlay that carries me to Georgia. I've hauled it twice already, and I called him Thursday to let him know that I would be in the area Monday night, maybe Tuesday morning, because I wasn't sure if I would get all these drops off. And so I told him, I said, you know, I may be available first thing Tuesday morning. It might be Tuesday at noon. And I said, do you have one of those loads to go to Georgia? And he said that he did not at that time, but he would request one for me. And he called me back Friday and said he got one, and he had set the appointment for noon for pickup, and set the appointment for noon in Georgia on Wednesday for the delivery. And I told him, I said, well, I said, I'm not sure how, you know, the loads are going to go, and so we might need to move that delivery appointment back. Now, the beauty of this load is that you have an appointment on the pickup, but they have an appointment for pickup, but it's almost really first come, first serve. I think the appointments are more so just that they don't schedule too many trucks in one day. Because both of the other times I loaded, I had noon or 1 o'clock appointments and got there fairly early in the morning and was loaded and gone in not a lot of time. But the even better point of the load is that on the delivery end, let's say he sets a 4 p.m. delivery appointment. The receiver allows for 4 hours ahead and 4 hours behind. So in reality, if you have a 4 p.m. appointment, your appointment window is noon to 8 p.m. And so I told him, I said, you know, I'm not sure how this multi-stop load is going to go. It may be right at noon when I get over there to get loaded. I may have burned up a bunch of my 14. I might not have a lot of time left to truck. And so it might be better if we set a later appointment on the delivery to let me get in there later on Wednesday if need be. So he changed it from noon to 4. So now I have from noon all the way to 8 p.m. to deliver this load down in Georgia. Now, granted, all the drops ended up coming off today. I'll be there first thing in the morning to get loaded. I should be able to make it most of the way to Georgia tomorrow. And then technically I would have been able to deliver the 12 o'clock appointment, which would have allowed me in at 8 a.m. But, you know, better safe than sorry. It's not a big deal. I'll go in at noon on Wednesday, hopefully. And that'll put me home Wednesday night. So I'll be home earlier than I thought. But, so that's a load, though, that I booked. You know, this load I'm going to go home on, that's a load I booked that was never on the board and was specifically got for me to haul. You know, he called and requested that load because he had a truck that he had haul it before, and I guess he has some sense of faith in me and the company to be able to say, all right, yeah, I'm going to request this load. 404 trucker, what's going on? And so he called the company and got the load. He never asked me about money. He sent me the rate con for the same amount of rate that I had talked him up to on the first time I hauled it. And so every subsequent load I've hauled for him has been for the same rate that I talked him up to on the first one. And they're good loads. And they take me right, well, they're not really close to the house, but from where I'm at here, it gets me close enough that I'm happy with, considering the rate that I'm getting to go down there. So, and on top of that, the shipper and the receiver are easy peasy to deal with. So, I'll take it. But that's where, you know, building a little bit of relationship, you know, Jeff's talked about it before. Building relationship with brokers, doing a good job for them, you know, providing quality service. Not only are you helping them out, but they'll come back and help you out, you know. I call this guy up and say, hey, I'm going to be in the area Tuesday looking to go home. Can you get one of those loads? He says, well, I'll try. And call me back the next day. Yeah, I got you one. I don't even have to look for a load to go home. I've already got it. So, works out pretty good. Keep that in mind. "404, is that your, I'm not trying to pry, but are you out of Atlanta?" That's if you're talking about that's Atlanta area code. I just realized, you know, okay, cool deal, cool deal. Yeah, being from Georgia, you know, 404 and 770. Okay, yeah. Yeah, me and my wife, we did that 2 years ago, I think. We did it 2 years ago, I think. Yeah, it's been 2 years now. Maybe it was 3, I don't know. But we did that 2 or 3 years ago. We live a little too far away. It was a grand thought when we were there. But in reality, we're about, depending on traffic on 285, we're about 4 hours out, 3.5. And so it's not just something we're going to shoot up and do every weekend or, you know, 4, 5, 6 times a year. So we didn't renew it. We did it twice in that 1 year, which paid for itself because the season deal was cheaper than going twice and paying for it. So, you know, I guess we got our money's worth out of it. But now we pretty much just we just hit it once a year, you know. And that's what we did. I guess it's been about a month ago now. 3 weeks, 4 weeks ago, I don't remember. Took the camper up there and camped and did that. So we like it. Stone Mountain's cool. Kids mainly, you know, with all the little things for kids to do that they have set up. So it's cool. I actually, not this past time we went to Stone Mountain, but the time before, I thought it would be a grand idea that we would hike down. We rode the sky lift up to the top, and it was kind of early in the morning. You know, it was probably around 9 or so. Oh, okay, that's cool. That's cool. But yeah, we not this time we went, but last year when we went up, we we got to the top of the mountain and walked around and everything. You know, we rode the ski lift up. And I was noticing that there was people coming up the mountain hiking, and several of them had small kids, you know, roughly my kids' age, and they had hiked up the mountain. And I'm like, man, you know, this is something different. We haven't done this before. We've been to Stone Mountain 4 or 5 times. And I said, you know, let's hike down. And so we talked to one of the guys there. He had a daughter with him that was the same age as my daughter at the time. I guess she was about 6 or maybe 7. You know, my daughter was 6 at the time, or 7, and the little girl was about that same age. And they had hiked up. And so I'm like, yeah, you know, because we'd never done it. And so I was asking him, you know, how hard is it? You know, is it crazy and all this? And he's like, oh, no, you know, it's no big deal. There's a couple of steep stretches, but they got handrails up. And Snorelord's in the house. And y'all keep a lookout for Snorelord now. Y'all keep a lookout on Snorelord's feed. I'm going to get back to my Stone Mountain story in just a second. But y'all keep a lookout, because I have it on good information. I have good information that there is going to be a really cool vlog coming at some point in the next couple of days or maybe a week. So y'all keep a lookout on Snorelord's feed there, because I have it. I have some good information that there is going to be like a killer vlog coming. Keep that between me and you. Don't let that out. But I got some good information on that. But yeah, so we start to hike down this stone. You know, I talked my wife into it. I'm like, come on, it'd be fun. And you know, kids and her, they were like, no, let's take the ski lift down. You know, the sky lift. I'm like, no, this is something different. It'd be fun. Let me tell you something. Stone Mountain don't look that high and don't look that steep, but you better have some good shoes and be well prepared, because yeah, you're going down, but it is steep enough that you're working yourself to keep from just free falling, because it is steep enough that it's effectively like you're walking with the brakes put on, trying to keep yourself from just running away. And by the time we got to the bottom, we could tell how out of shape we were. I'm just going to leave it at that. We were out of shape, and it was letting us know. Not to mention, we came down the mountain off the side, totally different from where we had gone up. So we were like a good 2-mile walk to where we had left the car. So luckily they had like a little shuttle bus that was running around, and we had to wait and catch the shuttle bus and carry us back around to the car. But I wasn't quite thinking about that when I thought of the grand idea of hiking down. So Christian Trucker's in the house. But yeah, so we enjoy Stone Mountain. We try to go about once a year. And the good thing about, yes, it will kick your butt. We have not tried, we have not done the hike. And when we were there this year, I asked them, I said, y'all want to do the hike up? And I got outvoted 3-1 on that. So we ski, you know, sky lifted up and down this year. But we try to do the Stone Mountain about once a year. Now, what we have done a couple other times, though, is we'll use it as just a place to take the camper and do other things in Atlanta. You know, earlier this year, we went to the Monster Jam in Atlanta, and we took the camper up, stayed at Stone Mountain in the campground. We didn't really do anything at Stone Mountain other than just camp and sleep in the camper, and, you know, the kids played on the playground that's in the campground. But we didn't do anything at Stone Mountain, you know, proper, you know, the attractions and stuff. But it's a really nice campground. So if y'all are in the Georgia area, I know a lot of the people that are watching that aren't from Georgia, but if you're ever in Georgia and you're looking for a campground around Atlanta, the one at Stone Mountain is very nice. And it's only, you know, 20-minute drive to downtown Atlanta, you know, depending on traffic. But really nice. And so we'll do that. We'll just camp at the campground, even if we're not doing something at the park, because it's a close campground to Atlanta. So but anyway, I'm about to get off of here. I've had a long day. Oh yeah, Atlanta, Snowlord. Atlanta's not too bad. Now come on, Atlanta's not too bad. It's kind of sucky in a truck, you know, when traffic's bad. But there's a lot of cool stuff that goes on in Atlanta if you're there as, you know, not a trucker but as a visitor to the town. There's quite a lot that goes on in Atlanta in order to enjoy the weekend. Well, Christian Truckee, the campground at Stone Mountain, it's about 20 minutes east of Atlanta out there on Highway 78. And by the time you get out to Stone Mountain, it's not like you're in Atlanta anymore, and then you're in the state park that is Stone Mountain Park. And so you have no idea that you're 20 minutes from Atlanta from the campground. You have no idea. And 404 is right. They put on an awesome laser show on the side of the mountain. I believe they do it every Saturday night in the spring, you know, late spring and summer and into the early fall. We've done it a couple of times. And on the side of the mountain where the carving is, and a lot of people don't realize this, but the carving that is on Stone Mountain is actually larger than the carving on Mount Rushmore. The people that are carved into Stone Mountain, if you measured the size of the people, it's larger than Mount Rushmore. A lot of people don't realize that. But anyway, they do a laser show on the side of the mountain, and it is absolutely awesome. If you haven't experienced it and you're in Atlanta on a Saturday night with no plans or nothing else better to do, go out to Stone Mountain and watch the laser show. It's not crazy expensive. All you've got to do is pay to get your car into the park. I think it's $15. It's not $15 a person. You pay $15 to park your car. The laser show's free. And it is well worth it. It is a cool laser show. Yeah, Atlanta's a cool town, you know, if you're away from the truck. I mean, I know that we're all truckers and we've all been through Atlanta, unless you're Roscoe P. Coltrane and you've never driven a truck through Atlanta. But, you know, we've all been through Atlanta and dealt with the bad experience of trucking through Atlanta. But when you're away from the truck, you know, I live in Georgia. I've lived in Georgia all my life. And if you're away from the truck, Atlanta's a pretty cool town. There's always something going on in that town, you know. It's not called the capital of the South for no good reason. There is always something cool going on in that town, you know, on top of the things that are there every day, like the aquarium and the Worlds of Coke and the Atlanta Braves, or, you know, whatever, football or whatever, you know. But there's a lot of cool stuff in Atlanta. Load I'm delivering now picked up in McDonough. Yeah, McDonough's a good freight area. I haven't actually done anything out of that area since I've been in the spot market, mainly because when I come out of the house, I'm getting something, you know, on to the Midwest, or, you know, out to the western Midwest. You know, I've been out to Nebraska from home, and Wisconsin and Ohio. I don't normally get to the Atlanta area. Snorlord Roscoe is, I believe he is in Walton, Kentucky at the TA. He got all his drops off just like I did. And all the drops are done. The trailers are clean. They were dry. Lots of rose petals, but they swept out. He has that hurricane of a blower he's got. He blew his right on out right there in the Walmart parking lot, he said. And got everything all cleaned out. Trailers are ready to go. No carts left on there, and all is well in the multi-stop world. Yeah, Michael, it is. That is actually the world's busiest airport. So, you know, that's one of the things that people don't think about, truckers don't think about, you know, when you're driving through Atlanta. There's a lot of factors that go into that. You know, there's a lot of interstates that merge. There's a lot of, Professor, I'm gonna come back to that. Yeah, rose petals. I had a lot. It looked like, man, I'm getting all twisted around on 4 different subjects, but when I opened up the doors at the last stop and looked in there, because I had 5 or 6 carts left on the truck, and they were way in the nose, it looked like I had enough rose petals on the ground that I could have had about 6 or 8 weddings in the back of that trailer today, is how many rose petals was thrown down on the ground. But it was all pretty dry, and they swept out no problem. But when you're driving through Atlanta in a truck, and there's a lot of traffic, what a lot of people don't realize is there's multiple factors that go into that you don't have all of the... You have some of these factors in most all big cities, but Atlanta has a lot of them that all come together in one. And you've got the busiest airport in the world, which means a lot of people in taxis, in cars, rental cars, coming and going to that airport, on top of the shuttle buses and everything else. And the workers that have to go back and forth to manage that massive airport. All right, so that's one of the traffic things. The other thing is the interstates that lead in and out of Atlanta. You've got your, Atlanta's a major area, so you've got your normal amount of freight coming in and out that just has to go in and out of Atlanta to sustain that city and all the industry that is there. But then because of the major interstates that come through there, like 75 from Florida and 85 from Alabama to Virginia, there's a lot of trucks that are just simply passing through. It's kind of like Chicago. So you combine all of those things, and then on top of that, Atlanta is not it's not nearly as set up for public transit like some of your other cities, New York, Chicago, things like that. Much more of the population of people that work in Atlanta, they actually commute from the suburbs up 75, up 85. And so it just turns everything into a massive traffic problem. That's why people don't, those are the things you got to think about, and why Atlanta is so bad compared to other cities. Yeah, I agree, 404. But now going back to the Professor, Pigeon Forge, excellent place to hit up. Yes, I agree. We actually have our summer vacation planned, myself and my brother and his family, and an aunt and her family. We're all 3 taking our campers, and we're going to Pigeon Forge for a week in July, the week after July 4th. And okay, cool, Brent. I love the Pigeon Forge Gatlinburg area. It's a cool vacation spot. There's great scenery. There is awesome things to do. It's a great, it is a great vacation spot. And the best part about it for me is that in the summertime, it's like 75 and not humid. Maybe 80, not humid. Because I live in South Georgia, and in the summertime, the humidity is thick enough you can cut it with a knife. And so, it's miserable. I like going to vacation somewhere where it's comfortable. I don't mind banjos playing Benjamin Duke. I'll listen to them all day long. And we're even going to do the tubing down the Little Pigeon River. And that's fine. If they want to have some banjo players standing out there on the side to serenade us while we tube down the river, that'd be just fine. Anyway, so yeah, Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, that's one of my favorite spots. My wife is the beach, and if I never saw a beach again, I would be just absolutely fine. But that's her deal, and so we'll go to the beach too. But I like Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge. There's a couple of places up in North Georgia in the mountains too. Helen, Georgia's nice, and you got a place over in North Carolina up around Asheville that's a nice place to go. But the Smoky Mountains are a cool vacation spot if you've never done it. Go and hit up some of the places. Oh man, yeah, I don't know about the soggy sandwiches, but yeah, you get on that, you get on the river on the tube, and it's not like some, raging river. This is a lazy day. This is just, chilled out, tubing down the river. You got your cooler tied up with you, and the kids are having a blast, and they actually have a little leash deal to where you can tie their tubes to yours so they can go, they can get away from you and do their fun splashing and all that or whatever, but they can't get away from you and get downriver. Okay, stay in a cabin? Yeah, we stayed in a cabin 1 year, a couple of years ago. We had the whole family, both of my brothers and all the cousins, both of my brothers and I, there's 3 of us. We all have kids that are all within they're all 7 cousins within about a year between each one of them. And it works out nice. So we got together and rented one of those huge cabins up there in Pigeon Forge, and that was a good time. But we've all got campers now, so we'll take the campers, and we're gonna stay for a week. But I have heard about Branson, Snorlord. I have heard about Branson, and I'm a country music aficionado, and so I have always heard about Branson and how it's kind of like little Nashville, Tennessee, in a way, with all the country music shows and things like that. But I have never got there, and I actually, I've never even looked it up on the map to see where it's at. I might have been close. How close was I to Branson this weekend or this past week when I was out that way? Was I even close? I've never even looked it up on the map to see what part of Missouri it's in. But I've often heard, or not often, but I've heard several times about Branson. Just never have thought about it the few times I've been in Missouri to check it out. Because I don't get to Missouri a whole lot. No, Jonathan Houston, I've never been to Nashville on a vacation type trip. I've been through Crashville a million times in a truck, but never on a personal trip of any kind to where I would be going and doing things. So I've never done any of the touristy type stuff in Nashville, Crashville, as Snorlord likes to call it, and he has got me calling it that too, because it never fails. I don't care if it's 2 o'clock in the morning, I bet you're going to find a traffic jam in Crashville. But I don't know if Snorlord's still in here to tell me if I was close to Branson or not, but I'll look it up on the map. But anyway, well guys, it's almost been an hour on this live feed. We covered, I'm starting to be like the other trucker James Best. I got on here to talk about one thing, and man, we hit on about 10 or 15 different subjects. But Crashville, yeah. So yeah, but anyway guys, I enjoyed it. I'm gonna hit the bed. I don't have a certain time I got to pick up this load. I've only got a 10-mile deadhead in the morning, so I just might sleep in the morning. And yeah, crash now on 24 West. I don't care what time of day it is. Almost if you don't find a crash in Crashville, you're extremely lucky. It never fails. Somewhere, somehow, they're gonna find a way to wad one into a wall or into each other at any time of the day. Branson is 30 miles south of Springfield. Man, I was on top of it there, Snorlord. So I wasn't more than about 40 miles away there when I was in Stratford. Man, I didn't know that. Well, that's cool to know. I'm gonna have to, I'll have to try to hit that up one day. It's like going south on 35 through San Antonio, Austin, always traffic. Yeah, Austin, back when I was with the private fleet a couple of years ago, we did Austin, and that was part of one of our Texas trucks, and Austin was the last stop on that truck. It was a Monday delivery truck. We'd leave Sunday morning, and we had a bunch of stops around South Dallas. Oh, not even really, they called it Dallas, but it's not Dallas. Lancaster and all down there on the south side. All right, Jonathan Wheeler, good seeing you in here. I appreciate you coming in. But anyway, we ended up in Austin, was the last stop on that load. And man, it would be like 4 o'clock before you could get down there with all the drops. And, oh my goodness, it was never failed. Traffic was a disaster. Disaster every time. And yeah, so I'm not a fan of Austin. Last time I was through Austin, I made it a point I went through there at like 2 in the morning. I'm sorry, guys. I'm watching a guy over there trying to back into a parking spot, and he's having a very difficult time because there's quite a few open parking spots in this truck stop. It's a very large Petro here, and even here at this time of night, there's, you know, I can just look over to my right and I can see about 6 or 7 parking spots over there. And now this guy over here, he's backing into a spot, and he's having a little bit of a difficult time because there's a guy parked on the curb in front of him, not in a parking spot, you know, not in a no parking zone, and he's parked over there, and it's making for a difficult back end for this other guy when the guy who's illegally parked could just as well have parked in one of the open parking spots over there. You know, makes no sense. Makes no sense. I mean, if it's 2 o'clock in the morning and there's nowhere else to go, and you're out of hours or you're falling asleep, it's not safe for you to be on the road, fine, make a parking spot. Get yourself out of the way and park on a curb. You know, park on the end of a row as long as it don't block anybody. Do what you got to do. But when it's this time of night and the parking lot's not full and you're parking up in a spot like that, I'm just going to call it. That's pure laziness. That's pure laziness, and I have no respect for people that do that. You know, there's plenty of parking in this parking lot, and you're going to go park up on a curb and make it difficult for people to actually park in a parking spot. There's no excuse for that, and I got no respect for people that do that. But anyway, we'll end on a rant, I guess. I didn't want to do that. I don't like to end on a negative note, but I guess we're going to tonight. Don't park in unauthorized parking areas and you won't piss me off. Not that it matters. Better be pissed off than pissed on. All right, well, y'all have a good one. We'll talk at you later. Be safe. Keep the shiny side up and the rubber side down, and keep trucking it up.